All right, traders, welcome to today's recap. This is Christian from Hertz Tribeca Trade Group, and it is Monday, March 11th. And I would call today a full participation day. SPY finished up just about 1.5%. Small caps came back huge today, almost up 2%. We'll call it 1.75%. Mid caps were up 1.3%. Nasdaq was up 2%. And where did the Dow finish? Remember, the Dow has that big component of Boeing, and the Dow was almost up 80 basis points, so still managed to do very well, and Boeing recovered very nicely from the lows. But again, completely different indices, right? The Dow was price weighted. Boeing is about 11. Boeing was the biggest weight, probably what, 10% weight now in the Dow, and SPY, remember, is a market cap. Float adjusted market cap index. So Boeing, I think, was like the 10th largest component. Oh, sorry, maybe even smaller than that, but basically less than 1%. So that's why you really didn't see the difference there in SPY versus, big difference between SPY and diamonds, right? So anyway, that's outside of today's context. Just really kind of amazed at the price action and really the value areas, right? I mean, so, I'm going to give a slight kind of pat on the back because I really spend a lot of time doing this on the weekends and as well as nights, when the market's closed, doing our research, just checking out the technicals and the support levels and so forth. And, we nailed this a couple weeks ago. We talked about how we ran into resistance. I didn't think anybody should be really surprised that we pulled back last week, although I was a little bit surprised at the magnitude of the move, especially in the small caps, which I talked about on Friday. But, I think there was a really good sign on Friday. And again, I called it, I didn't say go ahead and buy on Friday. I just said, hey, we're kind of stuck in the middle, right? My conclusion, which I will get to, is that, next week watch closely the support levels and watch for a bounce or a breakdown. And there wasn't really any question to it today. We had that really nice bounce. So this was the level, and this is why we have the value areas on our screens, right? And this is something that I tweeted out on the weekend too. You could see me tweet out, basically the level to watch. So if we look at the S&P, which finished up, futures finished up 1.4%. But, I mean, this is a perfect line in the sand. And a lot of people don't have this on their charts, right? A lot of people were looking down here, and they don't have the value areas on their screen, right? So, 27, 23, or if you want to look at SPY. But again, this is not after the fact stuff. This is, stuff that we've been talking about now for days. This is what's known as an 80% rule, right? We've gone all the way through value area. Again, we talked about this in Friday's video. I thought that there was some possible light at the end of the tunnel. But really key that we fell on that support. We also talked about in the weekend newsletter how IWM did the same thing, how 150.90 needed to hold for a bounce. And again, if you're just looking at support and resistance levels, this is your level down here, which I saw a lot of people quoting. And I understand they don't have the value areas on their screens. This is one standard deviation of the previous period's. One standard deviation, so a pretty key calculation of last month's price action, and we found the support. This happens time and time again with these value areas, but look at the support that we found right on the bottom of value. Can't make this stuff up. So nice to see that. Qs look like a different picture, but yeah, I mean, they did the same thing. I mean, they had a smaller value area, but they also really rallied pretty hard, up to 2%. What were the best performers? Let's look at some of the best performers of the Qs. I always like to do this at the end of the day as well as in the beginning of the day. But I tell you, what really helped me last week, and again, I'm really thrilled. Melly was up 7% today. Nvidia was up 6%, and then you kind of had a mix of things. Western Digital, which we did see calls on Friday, and a little bit of calls again this morning. So that was up 4.6%. So they did make money. I was saying that trade that went up early Friday They did not make money on that trade on Friday, but they definitely did today. AMD, Apple. So we'll talk a little bit about Apple. That's been a trade that we put on for the last, what, I think no, I put that on the beginning of the week, but I had it in the weekend newsletter twice. As a stock to watch. Amazon finished up 3%. So nice to see that the FANG stocks. Here's my chart of the FANG stocks because I want to talk what really gave us the hint last week, or that for me to go long. And I said this that I made it basically into my trading plan, saying that whenever these software names, the ones that are showing the really nice strength, whenever they dip, I want to be a buyer of them until it doesn't work. And that's exactly, I kind of had to close my eyes or hold my nose and buy a couple of those names last week, and they paid out big for me today. And I'll talk about those in the newsletter as well. But here's, just so you could see this visually, the white line is the equal weighted FANG. So this did come from from out of digestion. Maybe this starts to catch up because they've been an underperformer. And the yellow line is software names. So software names still had a bigger day than all of the FANG stocks put together. So and that's where the strength is, and we'll just see how long it lasts. So I'll go through some of the names that we had in the newsletter, but I got long ZS last week. I just saw it was responding very well in a weak market. I mean, and look at this thing, up 4.6%. I think at one point it was up 5%. So I took 2/3 of my trade off from last week. I really like the name, and I got in before the call buying hit. I think there were some calls on Friday, but again, my goal is always, and that's why I do the research, to get in before the call buyers. If you do your research, you will find these setups before the momentum call buyers come in. So really nice move there. What else did we kind of highlight? And we talked about the transports, how someone came in at the end of the day on Friday and went nuts buying the transports. And that proved to be, I checked this out over the weekend, that was a $45 million inflow. And for the week, I have a typo in here, $110 million, and you could see, the inflows and outflows very nice in ETFs. They get reported T+1, so you could see all the buying that someone did on the dip today. I got long UNP. I was looking at the rail names as kind of best in breed in the transports, and I got long UNP today. It didn't rocket higher, but I think it might be okay. I was torn between which one to add, and NSC rocketed higher, 2.3%. So sometimes that's just a little bit unlucky. CSX was also at 1.6. I guess I picked the one that didn't have the momentum to it. I thought as well that this rail name saw call buying a couple weeks ago, and I thought it was a good place. I think it'll be fine. I took off a target today, but I'm looking for a move basically to get back to 52-week highs. Just a little unlucky with that was the one that I guess underperformed, and I don't really know why. What did KSU do? KSU had a bigger day of 3%. So sometimes you get a little bit bad luck. But hey, it did the homework. I thought the rails were pretty good, and they moved up very nicely. And I sent those out. I sent out NSC, and CSX was the other one that I sent out. CSX also had a good day, up 1.6% and above that trend line. I like this on the weekly chart. We go to now, it's got to get above value on the daily, but if you look at the weekly chart, it's you could use basically 69.81 as your support on the weekly. So what else did we talk about? I talked about that really nice support in the IYT, and then we talked about that's always, if you're new to Tribeca Trade Group, or if you want to sign up, that's basically how we do all of our weekend newsletter. We kind of start with the big picture, and then we go into kind of a top-down approach, and then we look at where the strength is. But I said, starting this week, I said in the email that I send out that this is a group I want to add to when there is a dip, and I did this ZS. So look at some of these names that we did. So Zscaler I went over. AYX I took off today. There could have been a little bit more to go on this trade. I just decided that this was enough. but 77 was my ultimate target. But if you go on the daily, so it's, again, it's one thing to do the research. You also have to execute, right? It's not just, it's definitely multi-step process, but maybe I took this off a little bit early. I just wanted to lock in some gains today because I had a hell of a day, and my P&Ls on the 2019 highs. I'm up well over 30%. Knock on wood. But I'm just really, I'm ecstatic at how we've been trading and the research that we're doing and the execution. Now, we didn't catch every name. As I get through the newsletter, I'll talk about a couple names that I just didn't get on today. But Cyber had a nice, this was one that I started watching. Towards the end of last week, and take a look at this one. It was up 3.7%, so really strong. So really nice move on this one. And then I tweeted these two out, both Twilio, both two T names in the software space, or small cap tech space. Twilio just looked like it wanted to go. I mean, it was really strong holding in last week with a couple inside days, up 4.5%. And then look at Team, up 5%. So again, much different picture. I know I've been harping on this a lot because I want people to be able to find where the strength is and not get bogged down. Netflix, fine. It had a decent day. It was up 2.6%. What did Google do today? Might as well go through the FANG stocks as well. Google had a nice day, also up. So these names did fine. It looks like everything did fine today. But I just have noticed that these names have been acting a hell of a lot better, just overall and just basically year to date. Just a couple other names that we had in here. And then I also said, I just didn't want to put 10 charts, but TDD, also 52-week high, right? All these names are making 52-week highs. So again, that should tell you that something is going on here different. This is the market leadership, and I'll just continue to say it until it doesn't work. This should be Zen, by the way. I was in a small Zen trade. This one I did not add to last week. I put a Zen trade on about a week and a half ago, and I took it off today because it kind of went to the top of value, which was my, which is where I thought it could get to. And then outside of software, geez, I do have a lot of typos in here. But, what did we do? So I'll talk about what I did today. It's always a little bit of a challenge when names just move so quickly, when the market moves as quickly as it does. But Zen, QSR was a name highlighted. A couple different charts in that one. FN was one that caught my eye. WWE, this is the one I screwed up today. I had an alert set. I just did not pull the trigger. And I said, okay, well, I'll look at this at the end of the day when it was up about 3%, and it just kept on going. So, talking about doing the research and executing, pulling the trigger. Fortunately, I missed this one. I was in the newsletter 2 weeks in a row, and really really caught the move up. So, and then Apple's been in our newsletter for the last 2 weeks as well, helped by the Bank of America upgrade, price target raise, and then also today in the afternoon they announced that they have an event coming 325. So I took a target in my Apple calls, but I actually put on a shorter term trade as well in Apple, because once they announce an event, they have a habit of running into that event. And then sometimes the event could be a sell the news. But I want to be positioned long in this, and it's been coiled here for a while. So yeah, I took a little bit off of my June 175 calls, but then I added a few April calls as well today. And I think I talked about Workday. I did a video for Real Vision on this on Thursday that you could also check out if you're a member, but I think you could actually access that for free. I'll tweet that link out later. I talked about same thing, software names. Again, I'll continue to kind of be focused on this group that is performing very well. And if you have heard my videos before, you know that this is a group that I've been concentrating on for a while, but and I'll continue to do that because I still don't see a lot of people on, we were talking about this in the room. I think some people are still kind of in the dark about the software names, but I'll continue until maybe everybody gets on board, then maybe the trade is up. But for now, I think pretty good. Other groups that performed pretty well, again, if you look at the market breadth, you could see that it was very strong and it just kept getting stronger throughout the day. You can probably see this over here. I don't know if it's going to come up at this point. It may not. Oh, there we go. Yeah, you could see market breadth just progressively got stronger and stronger throughout the day. So I would say option activity was really, there was definitely some NVIDIA calls in the beginning of the day. I mentioned a repeat call buyer in Western Digital. There was NVIDIA calls that went up. I think I said that already. Some airline calls that went up, leaps that went up, and another call buyer in ZS, which is helping the trade a lot that I'm that I'm already in. Some smaller stuff. I mean, there wasn't anything today. Small aggressive call buyer in AMRN. There's a big Z trade that went up that had open interest. Whenever I have an asterisk next to something, it means it was against open interest and I need to check. Zandex is another one we got long, I think at the beginning of last week. This thing also had a nice day, was a little bit weak like everything else was. And my main message before we end today's video was just a lot of names were pulling back into support. It just was a really good... I did not see a lot of names really break down. I mean, other than the FANG stocks that were really weak, and they even held in okay. Like, they didn't completely break down. But, PayPal is a name that I noticed that just fell into the 20-day moving average. So, again, we'll continue to take one day at a time. But ultimately, we'll go back to this weekly chart. I mean, we're still going to have to get through resistance. But, I think what we've seen so far is very good. So again, first day of the week, this is a weekly bar. We got to get through 2816. But, as I always say, you don't have to own the whole S&P. We do check it out to see what the overall market is doing. But I think there's plenty of other areas to get involved in this market right now. This did not make a 52-week high, but I mean, it's very, very close. And again, that found support right at that bottom of value, just like S&P and IWM did. All right, so that's it for today. You could certainly, please email me if you want to have a conversation about what we do on a day-to-day basis. You can email me. I've got a couple different emails. You could either use Christian@TribecaTradeGroup.com or cfromhertz@gmail.com. Either one of those emails works, and I'm happy to give you an intro to our private Twitter feed, and you could see what we do on a daily basis all day long. Great day, guys, everybody. Have a great night. See you tomorrow.